Hey everyone, it's Wes. Two quick things before we start this episode. First, this is the first of 2 episodes that we're doing in collaboration with Backpacker Magazine to support their annual Bear Month. We're really excited about this partnership. They do a lot of fun content for Bear Month, a lot of good safety messaging. I wrote an article for them about Night of the Grizzlies. So check out Backpacker, go to their Instagram, go to their website. There's some really good bear content for you guys there. Second, in this episode, you're going to kind of hear us stumble over talking about doing some donations for Wildlife SOS, an incredible nonprofit that I've worked with that's done some amazing work with sloth bears. So here's how that's going to look. On our Instagram, Tooth and Claw Podcast, in our bio, we're going to have a little donation link that will be money that will go directly toward Wildlife SOS. So if you feel like donating, go to our Instagram, you can donate there, and we are going to match donations up to $2,000. So any amount after a week, we are going to match. And hopefully we get up to that $2,000 goal. They do some incredible work. I've worked with them closely. I know that money is really used to its maximum potential. So check it out on our Instagram, Tooth and Claw Podcast. Okay, that's it. I hope you guys enjoy the episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tooth and Claw Podcast. We have our bear biologist, Wes Larson, with us. How we doing, Wes?
Heyo, I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Doing good. And then we have Mike Smith, who's our tech guy, and he loves Superman. Everything about Superman. Superman's his favorite. He's obsessed with Superman. And I'm Jeff Larson.
Okay, now you said it all for me. Yeah, I guess I don't really need to have any input on that one. Man of Steel?
Are you into Superman?
Not particularly, no.
Okay. You love Superman. Why are you saying that?
I'm jealous of Superman. I like Lois is who I like.
Yeah.
You even like him so much you don't even think Clark Kent's a dork. You're like, no, Clark Kent's even cool because you like everything about Superman.
Yeah, I like his glasses, the thick Coke bottle glasses. I think he's a reporter? I don't even know what Superman is. I can't keep this facade up. I'm sorry, Jeff. I literally know nothing about him. Zord? Is that part of Superman? Is there a Zord involved somewhere?
There's a General Zord or something. That's who Michael Shannon played in that one movie.
Never saw it.
There's too many superheroes, too many superhero movies out there.
You boycotting them?
Yeah, no, but I'm tired of them. I got all excited for the new Marvel one because people were saying it was great, and I just kind of thought it was a pretty mid movie. I didn't think it was that great.
Mid? Whoa.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
You think it would have been better with Superman?
I'm not a huge Superman fan either. I feel like Superman's too strong.
So
it's
what
like
do you
not
want?
that fun. I just kind of am ready to be done with superheroes for a bit, and then maybe bring them back in like 5 years. You know?
Okay.
Interesting take.
So we are doing the first of 2 episodes that are special episodes because we are teaming up with Backpacker Magazine and Outside, and we're supporting them for their Bear Month, which is really fun. You know, sharks only get a week. Bears get a whole month over at Backpacker. So they've got a lot of different bear-related stuff coming out all month on Backpacker. I wrote an article for them about Night of the Grizzlies. We're doing these 2 episodes in support of Bear Month, and I think they're doing a little article about Tooth and Claw maybe too. So it's going to be a fun little partnership. Yeah.
That's cool. Do you tell them to let them know we're beefy boys?
Yeah. Make sure it says they're beefy.
Maybe we get like a centerpiece spread, just like being all thick on the centerfold.
I'm really happy we're doing it with them though, because they do a really good job with their information about bears. It's not, because Shark Week sometimes gets a little bit too focused on how scary sharks can be. And Bear Month with Backpacker, it's very balanced. It's good information. They do some great safety messaging. I just think they're really a great resource for people that want to learn more about bears, especially people that recreate a lot outside. So check it out.
All right. I'll read it.
Well, I doubt they thought we would do a sloth bear for one of our Bear Month episodes, but that's what we're going to do. It's been a long time coming. We've been talking about doing sloth bears for a while. They're one of the bear species I've worked with.
I can't wait.
And they're probably the most dangerous bear in the world.
What?
No.
Yeah.
Not
No.
with that name.
I know it's a bad name. We're going to talk about that too. But they probably are. As far as numbers go, at least, they definitely attack the most people. And I kind of think they're probably the most aggressive bear too. So we'll get into that in a bit.
Those things?
Those things. We've seen one in the wild. Jeff, you've seen two.
Sure.
Yeah, you've seen double the completely wild sloth bears that I have.
They never once even got close to attacking me.
Yeah,
so
fair.
If you're going off personal experience, you're wrong.
They're the least dangerous bear in the world.
I would describe it as being unaggressive, in fact.
Yeah.
All right. Well, they do attack a lot of people. And because of that, there were a lot of options when it came to talking about attacks from these bears. But since it's our first episode that's completely dedicated to them, I wanted to talk about the most famous sloth bear in history, which is the sloth bear of Mysore. If you look up a list of the biggest, like the most deadly man-eaters in history, often you'll find the sloth bear of Mysore on that list.
Huh.
This is one of those animals in India that kind of went on a rampage. And of course, there's like these great white hunters that have written stories about him. And that's what we're going to talk about today. It's a fun episode. All right. So in 1957, in the southern Indian state of Mysore, people were living in fear. But they weren't living in fear from the typical culprit that you would think in India. It wasn't tigers with a taste for humans or a leopard that was breaking into homes to kill human prey in the dead of the night. It was a sloth bear. And that sloth bear was on a rampage. By the time word of this bear had reached big game hunter Kenneth Anderson, at least 12 people had been killed by the bear and at least 24 had been injured.
Jeez.
People in the area knew that sloth bears could be dangerous, but this particular bear was acting especially aggressively and attacking people at any provocation. There were stories that people would see it at a distance and it would actually come charging at a distance to come attack these people. It was so pissed off.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Yeah. You get in moods like that sometimes, Mike.
Just
I feel
that
like
mad. I see you guys from like 2 miles away and just come running.
It is interesting, though. Like, humans, you really don't see too many distance attacks from anything. Like, even like fight videos, like, they're always in close proximity. If someone's like running from a far 2 blocks away, like, you know there's something wrong with them.
Yeah. Yep. And there very well could have been something wrong with this bear.
I like those stories that you read about online where some guy challenges a guy from like 2 towns over to a fight and they drive to meet each other. That's kind of a long distance fight.
It's like you didn't calm down at all, like during that whole process.
18-mile drive, just still getting heated.
Well, I remember in high school when that would happen, when you'd hear there was going to be like a fight after school. And there was just like an electricity in the air all day when you knew there was going to be a good fight. So anyway, I love a good fight. When word reached Kenneth Anderson, this hunter, he had heard some of the prevailing theories about the bear. And the most common was that this bear was just crazy or somehow afflicted, like maybe it had rabies. Some people also said that this bear had had her cubs stolen and was getting revenge. So kind of like a John Wick bear. Or others had said that the bear
more like a Liam Neeson, like a Taken bear.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. With John Wick, it would have like killed one of the cubs or something.
I see very few similarities between John Wick and this bear, to be honest, Wes.
All right. You're right. I got owned by you there. Other people said that the bear had taken a human girl as a mate and had taken this girl to her cave. But when the village came and saved this girl, the bear started attacking people in retribution.
You got a reference for that, Mike?
I wasn't listening. I was still thinking about how bad I just owned Wes.
This last theory for me seems like one that could have been easily disproven. Like, did you ever go pull a girl out of its cave? But I couldn't find anything about that.
Yeah, and why would it be so mad?
Yeah. You know, it loved that girl and they took her from it.
So it took the girl.
It took
or
the
girl
as a
went to
mate.
hit it voluntarily, and the people took the girl back.
It like stole the girl and was keeping her in its cave and not letting her leave. And the villagers came and rescued her. And then the bear started attacking because it wanted its girl back.
I like that theory because it's just like the villagers saying what would make them the most mad. And they're just like putting it, anthropomorphizing it to the bear.
Yeah. All right. So Anderson went over the details he received. He learned that the bear had attacked the face and the head of most of the victims, and he describes those attacks in his memoir, Man-Eaters and Jungle Killers. I'm going to read just a quick thing from him. He said, like all bears, he invariably attacked the face of the victim, which he commenced to tear apart with his tremendously long and powerful claws. In addition to biting viciously with deliberate intent to ensure the success of his handiwork, quite half the injured had lost one or both eyes. Some had lost their noses, while others had their cheeks bitten through. Those who had been killed had died with their faces almost torn from their heads. Local rumors had it the bear had also taken to eating his victims, the last 3 of whom had been partially devoured.
Go for the eyes. It's low. It's low, but it's effective.
I will say, at this point, I've read a lot of these different accounts of man-eaters from different hunters. You know, we had like the lions of Sava, we had the leopard of Rudraprayag. We've done a few of these stories. Anderson seems to know his quarry the best compared to a lot of these people. Like him even saying that this bear attacked the face like all bears do. It's true. And we've learned that like they often go for the head. And I do think he had a pretty good knowledge about sloth bear behavior and bear behavior in general.
Yeah, I was going to ask if that's a strange way to preface it by saying like most or like all bears.
Yeah,
it's really curious to me.
He actually loved bears, and we'll get to that in a second. But he knew enough about sloth bears to know that the fact that this bear had been feeding on people was strange behavior. He was told that this bear had begun its reign of terror in the Nagvara Hills near the large town of Arsikiri, which is about 105 miles northwest of Bangalore, which is one of the bigger cities in southern India. In these hills, this bear had attacked its first victims, and then it had become increasingly more and more confident, and it started spending more time in agricultural fields at dawn and dusk, and more of these attacks were occurring. So Anderson would hear about this bear on and off for about a year, but he mostly ignored the stories. He felt as though they're probably being exaggerated, and he actually really loved bears, so he didn't want to kill one. He's just kind of like, nah, I like bears. I'm not going to go hunt this bear.
I like that.
Yeah, but then something finally happened.
That's how I feel, you know?
Yeah.
Like, even when you're like, you know what? It's probably smart they killed that bear. I'm kind of like, I wouldn't have killed it.
Yeah.
If I was in charge.
People are constantly writing you and saying, Jeff, come kill this bear for us. And you're like, absolutely not.
I wouldn't do it.
You're our gun guy too. So who else is going to do it?
Yeah. What do you use your gun on, Jeff?
He just stares at it sometimes.
Because it's not a good like self-defense weapon, and I don't use it.
Yeah.
And I don't have it like out. That's a good. I guess it's just like
just in case.
Yeah, just for like my mental, you know.
That's it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, hopefully that keeps your mental state strong, because that's a dangerous thing to be relying on for your mental health.
All right. Finally, something happened, though, that did make Anderson get involved. He had a friend in Mysore, an elderly Muslim man named Alam Bucks. Alam was a caretaker to a shrine for a Muslim saint along a forest roadway in Mysore, and he basically lived with his family near this shrine and took care of it. And each night he would go out and light a lamp over the shrine that would burn all night. So essentially, just picture like a really rural forest road, and there's this one shrine on the road, and there's a house next to that shrine. And this guy lives there with his family, and his job is just to take care of this shrine. That's what he does, like 24/7.
That's cool.
Yeah. So one night, Anderson was on that road during a tiger hunt, and the rear wheel of his Studebaker flew off, and his brake drum hit the ground. And it's the middle of the night. He's all alone. But he was lucky that this wheel had fallen off almost directly opposite of this shrine, and Alan Bucks came out to inspect the commotion, and then he spent hours helping Anderson jack up the vehicle and replace the wheel, and he even gave him a bowl of hot tea to kind of send him on his way.
That's nice.
Yeah.
It's a long time to change the tire, though.
Yeah, it wasn't a tire, though. It was like the entire wheel came off, I think. So it was a little bit more than... I guess that's just a tire, but yeah you're right. You're right.
When exactly was this all happening again? Sorry, I must have
This is
that.
in the 50s.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Maybe the jacks were like pretty hard to get.
They
the
didn't
car
have
up.
it. Yeah. So when I read the whole story, they like just had to keep sticking rocks under and then lifting the car a little bit more and then putting another rock.
That'd take a while.
Yeah, it took a while and it was a whole undertaking. And this guy really went out of his way to help him. And he's elderly too.
I think Triple T once in WWE, he lifted a car up like that, like the two side. He pushed a car up onto the side of its two wheels. That would have been useful to have, maybe someone like him.
Sure. I don't know if Alan Bucks is
would have
doing
saved
much
a lot of
professional wrestling, but
Is that his
Would
name?
have
Triple
saved
T?
a lot
Oh,
of
that's not
time.
him. Yeah, yeah.
Triple H, right?
Triple H. Yeah, I don't know what Triple T is.
Mr. T. and
Booker
Triple
T.
H.
Yeah,
Booker
Okay.
T. Yeah.
Yeah.
whatever. There's
Sorry.
probably a Triple T too. Anyway, it was the start of a nice friendship.
I think that's actually my HVAC. Like, come over and fix my toilets for me sometime. They're Triple T. Shout out Triple T. Thanks. Doing a lot of work.
Will they pile drive you when they come over? All right. If you're like me, your parents really helped you expand your horizons, learn a lot more about the world. And if you want to return the favor, you can give them the gift of Masterclass. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. It's the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 plus of the world's best. For just $10 a month, billed annually, a membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every single instructor, which is an incredible deal. You can access it on your phone, on your computer, on your smart TV, even in audio mode. For me, some of the classes I listen to, I like to do it on road trips and just kind of absorb information from people who really know what they're talking about. Some of my favorites included Gordon Ramsay, who teaches you how to cook. You can learn from Steph Curry about dribbling and ball control, which isn't one I took, but maybe Jeff would want that one. There's all sorts of different people. I really like Jimmy Chin's class on adventure photography. I learned a lot about editing photos. It's just a true smorgasbord of amazing professionals teaching you how to be your best and how to learn a new skill, which we all want to learn new skills. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you try it and you realize that you don't like it, you can get your money back. So don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. Our listeners always get great discounts on Masterclass of at least 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/tooth. So you can go see Masterclass's latest deal, which is at least 15% off at masterclass.com/tooth. Masterclass.com/tooth. So this was the start of a nice friendship, and Anderson would actually stop at the shrine whenever he was in the area to visit with his friend Alum Bucks.
You like
So
that
Anderson-
honey tea?
Yeah, he loved that tea. He lives in Bangalore, so he was like a hunter, so he would pass through there a lot. All right. Not far from the shrine, there were a lot of fields where farmers grew ground nuts. And in the middle of those fields, about 400 yards from the shrine, was a hill of boulders that was perfect denning habitat for a sloth bear. And sure enough, this marauding bear took up residence in those boulders near the shrine. He would come out in the dawn and dusk to search for nuts and ants and termites. But this kept the bear mostly in these fields and away from the shrine. So even though they knew this bear was around, it was spending almost all of its time in these agricultural fields and then in its den. But then something changed. The fig trees surrounding the shrine started to bear and drop fruit. And suddenly this bear is now daily visiting this area right around the shrine. And one day, disaster struck. So Alum Bucks's son, who's 22, lived with his father, his mother, and his sister in that little house by the shrine. One night, after eating a nice dinner with his parents, this young man decided to go outside around 10 p.m., and no one really knows why he was going outside or what he was doing, but as he walked under these fig trees in the dark, he almost immediately surprised this bear, who was busy eating the fallen fruit under the tree. This encounter was so quick and unexpected that he really had no time to even react, and he was immediately knocked to the ground by the bear, which had charged the second it saw the shape of a person. He fell to the ground screaming, and in a flash the bear tore into his throat with oversized canine teeth, ripping a large gash that blood poured out of. The man tried in vain to fight against the bear. He quickly lost a lot of blood. He tried to scream for help, but he wasn't able to, maybe because the bear had essentially ripped his throat out. And it continued to bite this 22-year-old in the struggle. His teeth went through the nose and the eye of this man, and the claws tore across his chest, his shoulders, and his back. So he got pretty worked pretty quickly. His throat got ripped out. His nose got ripped off. His eye got punctured. This is all in a matter of seconds.
Triple T. That's kind of his wrestling move.
Yeah. Just poking out eyes and ripping out,
biting through
jugulars.
Through necks. That's interesting because, well, I guess it's maybe not interesting. It is interesting. Don't get me wrong, Wes. You're telling a very interesting story here. But I guess the fact that it's like got all this food around it, it's probably more just of like a defensive move.
100%.
Then. Yeah.
And we're going to get to that, but 100%. Yeah. As quickly as it started, it was over. The bear ran away, plunged into the darkness, and the son managed to crawl his way back to the house and stumbled into this really small abode. His blood is pouring out all over his body and onto the floor where he collapsed. The family did their best to put pressure on the wounds with some rags they had in the house, but his jugular vein had been punctured and he bled out on the floor and died.
Yeesh.
So Alum Bucks,
Not good.
His name is Alum Bucks, just so everyone knows. It's kind of a weird name, but I'm going to keep saying it. He sent Anderson a tear-stained postcard with the details of the attack. Anderson, who lived in Bangalore, left 3 hours after receiving this postcard. So he got it, he read it, and he was like, okay, I'm going.
It's personal now that he's got someone that helped him out. He's got to go get revenge.
It's got a John Wick in it.
John Wick. You brought me back around, Wes.
All right. He was armed with his .405 Winchester rifle, a flashlight, and a single change of clothes. He figured it would only take him a couple hours to find and kill this bear. But boy, was he wrong, guys. It would take him a lot longer than that.
You see, Mike, that's why I have a gun. If someone like wrote you a message, you wouldn't be 3 hours from being able to grab your gun and go.
True. I bet I could get a gun in 3 hours. I don't know. I've never tried, actually.
Just go to like gas
That's
station.
America,
Walmart.
right? Yeah. Well, Anderson was Johnny on the spot with his gun, his flashlight, and one change of clothes. So he arrived at Alum's house in that evening, and after catching up with his friend and kind of seeing just how grief-stricken the whole family was, they came up with a plan, and it was a pretty simple one. They figured the bear would be out at night again. It'd probably be in those same fig trees, and that Anderson could simply walk out and shoot it. So about 8 p.m. that night, he got his rifle, his flashlight. He walked out into the dark and along the road, and he was kind of just swinging the rifle and the flashlight back and forth on both sides of the road as he walked.
Sketchy.
Do you think this is where that band got their name from? Simple Plan? From this story?
I do. Yeah, I think this is exactly what it came from.
I've always
That's
wondered.
like
just a kid.
It's a sketchy plan. Like that seems scary.
Yeah.
To like be out in the dark with just a flashlight.
He's pretty brave. The whole time I read his book he does some pretty crazy stuff, and the whole time he never was like, I was very scared. He just seems very calm about all of this. It's a dark night. He walks several miles in both directions from the shrine, but never sees the bear. He goes to these fields with the ground nuts, and he sees lots of jackals and rabbits and wild pigs, but no bear.
It's also tiger country too, right?
It is, yeah. I think it's not like prime tiger country, though. I don't think
But
he's
it's
too
like
worried
in your
about
mind,
tigers.
maybe.
It's
Okay.
possible, yeah. And definitely leopard country, too. So he goes to this hill of boulders, and he shines his flashlight all over, still doesn't see anything. And as he's doing this, he almost steps on a Russell's viper, which actually strikes out at him and just barely misses his foot.
Oh, jeez.
And for him, that's enough to kind of break the spell and convince him he wasn't being smart. And he decides to go back to the shrine and kind of regroup. And he goes out a total of 4 times that night, but never even sees a single fresh bear track.
Oh, phantom bear.
Yeah. So the next day, him and Alum Bucks hike up the rocks in the middle of the day, and they go to the cave where Alum knew sometimes the bear would sleep off the heat of the day. Often sloth bears will just pick kind of these day dens that are in rocks, and they'll go into the den when it's really hot or when they just kind of want to rest. And Alum Bucks had seen this bear come back and forth from these rocks, so he knew it had a den in there.
They're fluffy. I'm sure we'll get into biology, but they always strike me as an extra warm bear. So it makes sense to me.
Like they overheat easily.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah, we
true.
will talk about that a little bit. But
They got too much hair.
so he found this cave. Anderson listened for snoring noises because bears often make some kind of snoring noises when they're sleeping. He didn't hear any. And then he chucked some rocks into this cave to try and wake this bear, which again is like much braver than probably I would be willing
That's
to do.
also
but-
like when you prefer to sleep if you're trying to kill it.
Yeah, maybe sneak in while it's
exactly.
not
Just
awake.
just fire some shots down in there. But you might hit its girl that it's kidnapped too.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Anyway, nothing happens. There's no bear. They're both a bit discouraged. They're hot. They're tired. And Anderson tells Alam Bucks that he had to go back home to Bangalore, but that he would come back if the bear showed up again. And it would be a month before there were new victims. Okay.
Ooh.
So let's talk a bit about sloth bears. We have a lot to talk about because we haven't ever really brought up this animal. They're an animal that's very near and dear to my heart. And biologically, I think they're one of the more fascinating bears. So first thing we should probably talk about is why are these bears named sloth bears? They aren't slow. They aren't particularly arboreal. So they do go in trees, but they're not like always in trees like some bears are. And they really don't look much like sloths to most people. But George Shaw might disagree with most people. He was a European biologist that was working in India in the late 1700s. And in 1791, he described the bears that he had seen in India, and he gave them the name sloth bear. He chose that name because of their long claws, kind of like a sloth has long claws, and missing front teeth kind of gave them the appearance of a sloth to him. Plus, he had seen bears in trees during his travels, so he just kind of thought, oh, it's like a sloth. Makes me wonder if he only knew of like two animals,
Yeah.
bears and sloths.
Or like he had just seen a sloth
Yeah.
the day before.
Yeah, which would be crazy because he's in India and sloths
Right,
are
but
like
maybe
New
someone
World
had
animals.
a pet sloth
Yeah.
or something. Like
Who
they're doing a
knows?
lot of animal trading.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had sloths on the mind for sure.
He must have, yeah. It's a bad name. We're going to come up with some alternative names for them later, but for me, I don't think it's a great name. In Hindi, they call them balu, which is the word for bear. It doesn't necessarily mean sloth bear, but it's used in parts of India where the only bears are sloth bears, so it's kind of become the name for sloth bears, balu. There are some other local names for them: Bir Mendi, Pani Karudi, Rinch, Baluka, Walhalla, and Karadi are all some local names for this bear.
Walhalla.
Great names. Walhalla. Yeah.
That's good.
Their scientific name has actually changed quite a bit throughout time, but the current scientific name is Melursus ursinus, which pretty much means honey bear. And like all bears, they really do love the honey. Jeff.
They love honey.
A long time ago, this is a little quick aside, Jeff was like hanging out with this girl who's Korean, and we had driven to Arizona, and Jeff had like fallen asleep in the back seat, and she was sitting shotgun with me, and we were having
I was
a very
awake, but I was
okay.
Yeah,
You were quiet in the back
I
seat.
wasn't talking. Yeah,
Me and her, she was very cute. Like I just loved Myung-hee. And we were having this kind of awkward conversation, and it had gotten quiet. And then just out of the blue, she goes, "Do bears really love the honey?" And it was just like really cute. And I think about it
So
all the
funny.
time. Yeah. And I was like,
it
"They do."
was. I did a lot of groundwork behind
Yeah.
or like before that question of
Yeah.
Is
just
the right thing to ask?
talking about bears and honey like every time we were together.
Oh, it's great. All right. Anyway, these bears are found in India, Nepal, Bhutan, and Sri Lanka, but the vast majority of sloth bears live in India. They're the third smallest bear in the world on average, but there really isn't a ton of difference between them and like spectacled bears or Andean bears and Asiatic black bears. They're all kind of in the same size category. The one that we saw in India, the three of us, was a pretty large sloth bear. Like that was a big bear.
Is
I would
puff.
guess it's
Real
on
puff.
the upper side.
That is nothing.
Average weights for these bears really vary between populations, but in India, they average about 207 pounds or about 94 kilograms for males and about 185 pounds or 83 kilograms for females. So there is some sexual dimorphism at play, but not anything too drastic when we're talking about size.
Yeah, I've seen bigger bears.
You've seen bigger, dude. Yeah. All right. They're typically black with really shaggy long fur that we just talked about. It's particularly long around their head and shoulders, which kind of gives them a bit of a mane. And then they also have a long patch of fur on their mid to lower back, which we'll talk about that purpose in a bit. They have a white or cream colored U or kind of Y-shaped pattern on their chest, and that's thought to be a warning system for potential predators. And when you see a tiger or something approach a sloth bear, they often get up on their hind legs and show their chest, and that big white U is on full display. It's kind of like a look how big I am.
Mike?
What's up?
Kind of like Superman showing his S off.
Does he do that? Is Superman like, check this out?
Yeah.
Oh,
usually
yeah, for sure.
Superman's going around on all fours, but when he's threatened, he stands up and shows his ass off.
See, I didn't even know that. You know so much about him.
You guys brought up earlier that they have really long, thick fur for an animal that lives in
Yeah, why is
really
that?
hot part of the world. I don't totally understand it, but apparently the way that their fur is actually helps to like cool them off.
Oh, it's like that thing in like Latin America where the hottest days of the year they give you like hot soup.
Sure. I don't think that's
Like,
exactly
like-
it. But yeah.
That's a thing they do. They
do.
On really hot days they give you like hot food and they say it cools you down. Maybe sloth bears. It's like, oh, actually having all this hair makes me cooler.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, dude. I bet you'd like it if someone shaved you.
Yeah.
And they don't, the main thing though too is
give them
they
like
don't-
one of those poodle haircuts where you shave their whole body but leave their head.
Feels so nice, I bet.
Oh, they would love that.
the main reason though that they don't overheat as much as you would expect is they don't have an undercoat like a lot of other bears do. So like polar bears, for example, have a very thick undercoat, and then they have those long guard hairs that come out, and that's what keeps them very warm, and sloth bears don't have that. But it's actually really important that they have that long hair because as they're feeding on their favorite food, if they weren't covered in that fur, they'd probably get bit a lot, and they don't because of that. So
Bit by what?
we're going to talk about that when we get there in just 1 second.
Humans, probably.
They have long...
Tooth and Claw is brought to you by Quince. The Quince sweatshorts have become just a staple of my everyday life. They're so comfortable. I love sweatshorts. If you don't own sweatshorts, I'm telling you, you should. They're the most comfortable things you can own. And Quince actually has all the things you want to wear. It's golf season. I like having polos when I play golf. They have organic cotton silk polos that look great and feel great. They're comfortable. They have comfortable pants that work from everything from backyard hangs to nice dinners. And the best part is with Quince, everything is priced 50 to 80% less than what you find similar products with other brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury pieces without the crazy markups. And this is important to us, Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. Elevate your closet with Quince. Go to quince.com/tooth for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Let me think here. That's like almost 1 year. And that's quince.com/tooth to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/tooth.
They have long muzzles and really floppy lips. One of the proposed names for sloth bears was actually lip bear because their lips are so big. They did, one of the scientific names was like labius, Ursus labius or something.
That's what I think we should start from.
They're also missing their incisor teeth. So these little teeth here, they are missing them. They have the canines, but not the incisors. And that gives them an advantage for eating their preferred food, which is ants and termites. So sloth bears are myrmecophagous. Can you guys tell me some other animals that are myrmecophagous?
Ooh, maybe manatees?
Mermaids?
No. Anteaters, pangolins, aardvarks are all myrmecophagous animals. And what myrmecophagous means is they're eating primarily termites and ants for their food source.
Oh.
So when you see a sloth bear in the wild, what you often see them doing
Anteaters eat ants?
Anteaters do eat ants, yes.
Hmm.
When we saw
That's
the sloth
convenient.
bear, yeah, I think those two are related, their name and what they eat.
That's a coincidence.
When we saw our sloth bear, do you guys remember what it was doing?
It was just like looking at the ground, wandering around.
Yeah. And that's not usually what you see other bears doing. Like, other bears will be grazing, but then as they're walking around, they're picking their head up, they're testing the air, they're kind of constantly checking for scents. Whereas a sloth bear has its nose right on the ground because it's looking for termites and ants almost all the time. And they can actually detect insects up to 3 feet underground with their sense of smell. And then they use those big, powerful 4-inch claws to tear through often rock-hard colonies of termites and ants.
Nice. Rock
Once
hard.
Once they disturb them and they get all those ants kind of, and termites like
Disturbed.
Disturbed. Oh, I can't do it. They like kind of do a huffing thing to clear some of the dust away. And then they, without those front teeth and those big lips, they can form kind of almost like a vacuum seal over termites and ants, and they just suck them up.
Whoa.
Oh, cool.
Their teeth are often in really bad shape because when they're sucking up termites and ants, they're also sucking up a lot of dust and rocks. That's just kind of, that's the price of doing
Par
business.
for the course.
Yeah. They can actually, too, actively open and close their nostrils, which prevents termites and ants from getting sucked up into their nose. So, pretty cool.
Yeah.
A lot of really cool adaptations and evolution for just eating that one food source mostly.
If there was one trait I could take from a wild animal, it would be that. I think
Closing
that
your
sounds like the
nostrils?
coolest. Yeah.
Yeah, try it. I
I'd
can't
rather
do
be
it.
able to do that than like fly or breathe underwater, I think.
Yeah,
What would you use that for?
I wouldn't.
If something smells bad, I wouldn't even have to pinch my nose.
What you would just breathe out? You can breathe out your mouth right now when it's tough.
I know,
smells
but
bad.
you don't want anything getting up there causing boogers to happen.
Sure.
Listen,
If you were like
I'm
jumping
just-
off something high, you don't have to pinch your nose. You can just
it's a
close it.
watertight opinion.
Oh
I've
yeah,
got.
swimming for sure.
Yep.
All right.
Like
Like all bears, like all bears, they are very opportunistic though, and they will eat a wide variety of foods, including fruits, honey, nuts, plants, carrion, or sometimes even fresh meat. Some of their
Oh.
favorite,
They'd probably love Honey Nut Cheerios, dude.
they would,
Oh,
honey
they
and
are
nuts, dude.
2-in-1 convenient ring-shaped snack.
You think it'd be good for their heart?
Cholesterol levels, yeah. That's what they always say in the commercials.
Some of their favorite non-insect foods are mangoes, jackfruit, corn, sugarcane, melons, and pods of the golden shower tree.
That sounds awesome.
We've all been to that tree.
All right.
Yeah.
Visit that one a little more often.
All right. They do not hibernate, but they will often find caves to sleep in. They're crepuscular, which means active dawn or dusk, but they can be quite active during the day. And then sometimes they switch to a very nocturnal activity pattern when they're living closer to humans. Female sloth bears gestate for a total of around 210 days, but like other bear species, they do have delayed implantation. So that fertilized egg is not going to implant in her uterus until her body knows that she's healthy enough to have a cub. When that happens, she'll enter a maternal den. She'll give birth and stay in the den for about 3 to 6 weeks. Those cubs are born altricial, which means they're completely dependent on their mom. They're blind, but they develop faster than a lot of other bear species, and they're typically walking within a month of being born. When they leave the den, they'll ride on that patch of fur that we talked about. So both male and female sloth bears do tend to have that patch of fur, but it's for holding babies, and the babies will climb up there and they ride on their mom's back.
It's really cute.
It's very cute, and it's thought to be a tactic for protecting cubs as well as transporting them to different termite and ant colonies. Because when you think about it, if she has to constantly be checking out new ant and termites, it's like a really effective way just to move her cubs back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do the males have it?
I don't know. And I should probably double check, but I'm pretty sure they both have it. And I think it's just,
Yeah, you made a point of saying
did.
they both
Yeah.
have it.
but I think they do.
Check now, dude.
I really do think they do. I will check later. And
Yeah,
if I got
because
that
the
wrong,
males
I will do
don't
but
carry the babies around, right?
Yeah, I just don't. I think both of them have it though. Wait, I'm just gonna check real quick.
It just like pulls up Wes's paper he wrote on the sloth bears.
You should know this. See, this says no, but I honestly think they do.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, I think they do. I honestly, because I remember working at the center that I worked at, and you couldn't tell them apart because of a saddle like that. So that was just the AI result that said that, which I wish I could turn off. I'm pretty sure they both have it. I'm going to look into it, though. I'm going to double check on that. Everyone just put a little pin in there. But I'm pretty sure they both have that saddle.
When like the first 3 responses were just ads.
Yeah. I hate the AI responses. All right. But you guys know me. I'm not a big AI fan. Okay. Sometimes females will eat and regurgitate a mixture of half-digested jackfruit, wood apples, and pieces of honeycomb. It's a sticky substance that hardens into a dark yellow circular bread-like mass, which is then fed to the cubs. And this bear's bread is considered a delicacy by some of the native people of India.
Wow.
Which I would love to try it. Sounds delicious.
Really?
Yeah. Some jackfruit, honey, and apples mixed together that a bear regurgitated.
Yeah, that's the part.
You wouldn't want to try it at least? I'd love to try it.
I'm not as excited about it as you. The regurgitated part is like, I'd be a little, I don't think I'll like this.
Well, isn't all honey just regurgitated bee vomit?
Yeah, pretty much.
We all love vomit. I like vomit just fine, if I'm being honest. If it's that kind.
Honey vomit?
Yeah.
All right. Cubs leave their mom between 2 and 3 years of age. Tigers present a very real threat for sloth bears. One study on a population of Bengal tigers found that about 2% of tiger droppings within that population had sloth bear in them. So they aren't a major food source for tigers, but they do sometimes opportunistically kill and eat sloth bears. We're going to get more into that here in a second. We're going to talk about attacks first. This is probably the most dangerous bear species in the world when it comes to the sheer number of attacks. There isn't great reporting for the species as a whole, but one study looked at attacks just in one Indian state, Madhya Pradesh, between the years of 1989 and 1994, so a total of 6 years, and they found 687 maulings and 48 deaths.
Whoa.
So just for those 6 years in one Indian state, there's an average of 115 maulings and 8 deaths per year, which is much, much higher than you would see with any other bear. So why are these attack numbers so high? A big part is definitely that there are a ton of people in India. They're rapidly spreading into prime sloth bear habitat. But even when you adjust for population size, encroachment, and whatnot, the attack numbers are still really high. So the other main reason for so many attacks is just that this is a very, very defensive animal, and they need to be so defensive to survive. So I co-authored a paper last year with Thomas Sharp of Wildlife SOS and Dave Garcelis of the International Bear Specialist Group, and we looked at interactions between Bengal tigers and sloth bears. And the idea behind this paper was that sloth bears have co-evolved with large feline predators during a lot of their evolution. So like saber-toothed cats, tigers. There was a jaguar species actually. Yeah, leopards now. They've co-evolved with all these different big cats. And that has led to a very strong defensive reaction when they're approached by a predator. This combo of them constantly having their heads on the ground looking for food, and then them not being really great tree climbers means they have to sometimes just scare a tiger off with a very explosive defense that convinces the tiger that they're not worth the trouble. Ooh. So a tiger can kill a sloth bear, like they're capable, but for a tiger, is it worth it if like you go to kill that sloth bear and then you realize you're kind of going to get your ass kicked while you're killing it, you know? Is it worth it? And that's kind of the purpose behind this big defensive display that the sloth bear does. It's a good strategy. It is. It's really effective.
Like in humans, if even like a really good fighter, I feel like if someone just is like full on crazy, like strip their clothes, get naked, throw dirt in the air, like that fighter's going to be like, I don't know if this is worth it anymore, you know?
Yeah. Well, and it's true. Like we talk about grizzly bears a lot. The thing about grizzlies is they constantly are testing the air again and like listening and smelling. And so they often hear us or smell us coming long before we see them. And it gives them plenty of time to get out of there. But with an animal where its head is always on the ground, some of the videos I looked
They're
at for my
sniffing
paper, the tiger
underground.
the tiger pretty much bumps into them before they even know it's
Really?
there. And they don't have then the space to get away anymore, so they have to switch to this offense of like, I'm big and dangerous.
To bring up our personal experience when we were watching the sloth bear, is like we were there because there was a tiger mom with 2 cubs, and they were like right next to each other. They were like
I was
within,
crossing my fingers. Yeah.
at like some points, I think they were within like 100, 200 yards of each other.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
then like the bear had no idea.
Yeah.
Like the
know.
bear was just sniffing the ground, just like walking around. It had no idea that there was a tiger close.
Yeah. They run into each other a lot. And especially in India where like water sources are frequented by a lot of different animals, sometimes these interactions happen in water holes. And every once in a while, the tiger does decide to kill a sloth bear. But sloth bears can do a lot of damage with their claws and with their oversized canines. They have really long canine teeth. And unfortunately for humans, they often use the same strategy on us. When a sloth bear feels threatened by a human, they often launch a defensive attack, and the outcome can be really devastating for humans. Basically, every sloth bear attack is defensive. As far as I know, there have been no recorded attacks that were thought to be initiated as predatory attacks.
Oh.
There have been ones where they have attacked people and then fed on them after they've killed them, but they don't think that those were started as predatory attacks. They're all defensive.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
in the
Can you
story, Alum's son, there was no signs of the bear feeding on that
No,
body. Wow.
it took off. Yeah, as soon as it neutralized him, it was out of
And
there.
that one, he startled it. It was just like
Mhm.
reaction, like, let's neutralize this threat. That's what I've evolved to react to threats, you know?
Exactly.
This episode is brought to you by Hims. Men, if ED's getting you down, you need Hims to help you get your confidence, and some other things, back up. A little bit of innuendo for you there. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Who knows? That mood come right out of nowhere. You know, when Jeff and I were down in Mexico, and I promise you this story isn't going where it might seem like it is with that kind of introduction, we actually saw ED medication being offered by the hotel in question, and it was super, super expensive. And I'm just going to say Hims, a lot more affordable, and you never know when that mood's going to strike, so you got to be prepared, get Hims. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. You just fill out an intake form on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships to you directly and for free. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/tooth. That's HIMS.com/tooth for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/tooth. The featured products include compounded products which are not approved nor verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality by the FDA. Prescription required. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
It'd be interesting if one went into the Shire, because they would be bonking their head more than Gandalf, I bet.
It'd be interesting, yeah. I don't think they're tall enough, though.
But like the walls and stuff, they'd be sniffing the ground, bonking their heads.
I think you're right. What sound would they make when they bonk their head?
You don't think they'd bonk? You don't think they'd bonk their head if they were in a house?
Are you
Wes?
talking to me?
Yeah.
I guess I
You're the
haven't really
biologist.
thought about it, but yeah, I guess they would.
It
They probably
feels
bonk
like
their
they
head a lot.
bonk their head on trees all the time,
I don't know. Why do you think that?
because they're always sniffing the
Okay.
ground.
Yeah, they might.
Yeah, they're not looking.
They're
at
not looking up.
You're
head
probably
bonks
right.
all day.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a theory.
All right. So
I think from the
where
fig's
was
perspective, almost every sloth bear attack is predatory. Like if you were to talk to a fig, they'd be like, "Yeah, all
yeah,
of them."
these guys are very predatory. Yeah. Or a termite.
I think I'll write a paper on sloth bear head bonks.
Yeah, it's easy. I did it. So yeah, I'm going to link the details to our paper in the show notes. It's open access. Anyone can read it. I do think it's an interesting paper when it comes to like two really interesting animals interacting with each other. That's a lot of biology. It's a new bear species. It's an animal I've done a fair amount of work with. Outside of this paper even, I did some work with them. I definitely wanted to talk about them. I may even do a short bonus episode that goes over my research with sloth bears and release it for our subscribers. But for now, we're going to leave the biology and go back to our story.
Now it feels like you have to do that.
Yeah, maybe I will. We'll see. I don't have to do anything, dude.
It just feels like a big tease if you don't.
You should just read your paper and record it and
Just read the
throw
whole
that
thing.
up. Yeah.
All right. When Anderson heard that the bear was attacking people again, it was in a forested area about 20 miles away from Alan Bucks's shrine. Again, this is about a month later. This is in the small jungle town of Sakrapatna. The bear had mauled 2 men in the area that were cutting wood, and it had killed one of these men. And then one of the forestry officials had written to Anderson to ask for his help. He thought it was very possible this was the same bear, and he remembered his promise to his friend. So he said that he wanted to help, but he wrote back and said, get as much information as possible about the whereabouts of this bear, its daily habits, and then I'll be there soon. And about 10 days later, he got word of where the bear was thought to have a cave, and he was told that in the meantime, a forest guard had been mauled by the animal. So he left. He thought, I got to go kill this bear. It's still attacking people. So he left for this Sakrapatna place. And the day after he arrived, the bear struck again. There's a man who was with his brother, and his brother was grazing cattle in the forest near the hill where the bear was living, when suddenly this man heard screams coming from his brother in this deep forest mixed with the growls of a bear. The brother was too afraid to go and confront the bear that he knew was mauling his brother, but he ran to the bungalow where he knew Anderson was staying to tell him about this attack. It was 4:30 p.m., and Anderson got his rifle, his flashlight, 3 or 4 helpers, and they started off into the jungle to find this guy. The only problem was that this brother had really undersold how far the attack site was, and Anderson thinks they walked for about 6 miles through the jungle before getting close to this area where the man had been attacked. And at this point, when they get close, they're surrounded by dense jungle, these big bamboo groves. By the time they got there, it's getting dark, and the men that had accompanied Anderson weren't about to chase a bear into this dense brush in the dark, and they just said, we're going home, and you should go home too. So everyone leaves, aside from this guy's brother, the guy that had been attacked, his brother, and Anderson. And the brother is getting pretty spooked out too. And so he just stands where he is, and he's like, listen, we're close to where this happened, but I'm not going any further. I'll stay here and wait, but I'm not going to go into this jungle with you. Which
Didn't
Jeff
quite have that revenge. He didn't have that need for revenge for his brother.
No, I would do it. I'd go kill this bear if it had attacked you. and
I'd
pulled
tell you not
off.
to.
Okay. Mike, would you do it for your brothers?
No, sir.
Would you get someone close to it
Oh,
then,
man.
so they could do it?
My brothers wouldn't lose to that bear. They would win. They would have beat the bear. I would need revenge.
Basically, this guy, though, he just kind of waved his arm in the direction of where the attack was, and he said it was over there. So Anderson picks up his rifle and his flashlight, and he walks in that direction and into this thick brush. He's yelling for this attack victim, whose name was Thima, and he's not getting a response. The jungle's getting thicker and thicker. He's about to turn around, and he calls out one more time, and just barely hears a tiny moan in the valley below him.
Wow.
So he works his way down into this valley.
It's
really
the girl
steep.
the bear has in its den.
He's still yelling this man's name, and the moans and cries are gradually getting stronger and stronger until he finally founds Thima. And I want to read this part straight from his memoir about what this guy looked like when he found him. Forcing my way through the thickets, I struggled down the decline, slipping on rocks and loose stones, catching myself every now and then on the thorns. After a couple 100 yards of such progress, I called again. After some time, I heard a moaning answer somewhere to my right. I proceeded in this fashion, following the cry until I eventually found Thima, lying at the foot of a tree in a puddle of his own blood. His face was a mass of raw flesh and broken bones. The only way of distinguishing that he was breathing was by the bubbles of air that forced themselves through the clotting blood. In addition, the bear had raked across him the stomach with his claws, tearing open the outer flesh so that a loop of intestine protruded. He was hardly conscious when I found him, and I soon realized that what I had taken to be a moaning reply to my calls were just the groans he was making every now and then in his delirium.
Oh, like he wasn't trying to respond. He was just
moaning.
Yeah.
Just moaning for the love of moaning, dude.
Have you ever had it where like the only noise you could make was just a moan?
Like when you get punched in the stomach and you just go, like I feel like I've done that before.
When I pee in the morning, that's kind of how it is.
That's the only noise you can make.
Moan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like if you really have to pee. There's one rope swing where a branch grabbed, or like I tried to swing on the rope swing and a branch like hooked the rope. Mm-hmm. So it like flung me more than like swinging it's normal.
Yeah.
There's a high rope swing. It's like 30 feet. So it just like flung me and I had no control over my body and I belly flopped. When I came out of the water, it's just like a, oh, like that's like the only way I could get air out. And I got like made fun of by the people in the boat for like the rest of the high school for their doing that.
That's pretty funny. All right. So pretty much this guy, from his description, his face is just hamburger. He couldn't even really tell it was a face, but then he could see these bubbles coming out where he was trying to breathe. And then the bear had also ripped his intestines out. So just like one loop of his intestine was sticking out.
Just like when I belly flopped.
Yeah, it's pretty much the exact same thing. I'm glad you brought that up. Anderson knew that Thima was going to die if he didn't do something right then and there. The night was quickly approaching, so he lifted him on his back, which isn't easy in the thick jungle.
Yeah.
And apparently, Thima was kind of a beefy boy, too. He was pretty heavy.
It'd be easier if he had all that hair. Latch
like
him
a
on
sloth
there.
bear. Yeah. But he used his rifle as a walking stick. He climbed slowly up the hill with the mangled Thima on his back. He was almost to the top of the ridge when he stepped poorly on some rocks. His left foot slipped and caught between two boulders, and searing pain ripped through his body. And he and Thima, he and Thima fell to the ground.
He's going to be like a 127 hours guy, start drinking his own pee and stuff.
He's got Thima to eat if he needs to.
Oh, that's a good point.
He sprained his ankle and he's unable to walk.
Ouch. 10 ouchies.
Yeah, we've all been there. It's terrible.
It's crazy to me that part of the story is like the most squeamish I got.
Yeah, I know.
We've all done that enough. I just I hate when someone does it on like the NBA or something and they keep replaying it. Like I can't watch it. So he yelled for about an hour for the brother, but he never got a response. And he realized he was going to have to spend the night here with Thima, who was dying. He stayed up the whole night listening to Thima's groans and gurgles get fainter and fainter until he died around 5 a.m. He wasn't able to support himself on his foot, so he tried crawling through these thorny bushes, but it was so thick that he didn't make it very far before he gave up. He knew he would just have to wait for rescue, and around noon, a large group of people led by Thima's brother showed up and rescued him and recovered Thima's body. Anderson was taken to the hospital. His recovery would take weeks, and he decided at that point he was going to kill this bear at any cost.
Now it's like, you messed with me.
Now it's personal. Yeah. All right. So, in the couple weeks that it took him to recover, the bear mauled 2 more people.
I'd go shoot that rock, personally. That's the thing I'd be most angry at.
Anderson learned that had been seen regularly in a field with some borum trees, and when he's able to walk, he went to this field in the evening and he picked a large tree, and he just decided to sit at the base of this tree with his back to the stump and just wait for this bear. Sure enough, around 11 p.m., he heard the noise of the bear as it woofed and grunted and shuffled toward him. It took about an hour for this bear to finally come close enough to Anderson, and when it did, he shined his flashlight on the bear, and it immediately stood up in this light, showed that large white-shaped U pattern to Anderson. He fired and planted a bullet right in the middle of that U, killing the bear instantly, and in his book he says, "And that was the end of that really bad bear."
That's a good way to end that story.
So was this really a bad bear? Or was it actually a number of different bears that just happened to be mauling a slightly larger number of people than average that year? I personally think it was probably 2 or more bears that were responsible for these maulings. because the first ones took place like 20 miles from the second group that we were talking about. And they described that first spot as being really good for a bear. Like there was all these different food sources. There was a little lake. There was denning habitat. There's really no good reason for that bear to move 20 miles away. And they actually have one of the smaller home ranges of different bear species. So one of my colleagues, Thomas Sharp, wrote a paper on the sloth bear Mysore, and he kind of thinks the same thing, that it was probably multiple bears involved in these attacks. But it's impossible to say, and it could have been one.
In the 50s, they did have that mindset a lot, too, of just like an animal being evil and like...
Yep. And I don't blame Anderson for sticking to that narrative because it makes for a better story, and it's kind of a bigger win when you kill the animal because you can kind of say it's over, you know, like this reign of terror is over.
I did it.
Yeah.
No more bear attacks in India.
Right, they're done. So yeah, there is a lot of kind of debate over whether or not this was multiple bears. I think it probably was. But it's still a really interesting story regardless.
Yeah, for sure.
It's possible it was one.
Yes, it is possible, for sure.
Maybe it's kind of like the noble lie. Old Plato always used to talk about the noble lie, about how it's probably better for that society over there to think that it was just a single bear and now the problem was gone and now they're all living comfortably again.
Yeah. At the
Plato.
time, I would agree with you.
He was a wise
job,
old
Plato.
man.
Yeah.
Tooth and Claw is brought to you by Element. You guys know we love Element. I'm sitting next to a big pile of Element packets right now. I'm in Salt Lake, and I don't go anywhere without it. I always put it in my water. I think it makes it taste better, and I just feel better after I drink it. And the reason for that is because healthy hydration isn't just about drinking water. It's about water and electrolytes. And that makes a lot of sense because you lose both water and sodium when you sweat. And both of them need to be replaced to prevent muscle cramps, headaches, energy dips. And a big reason that most people just replace the water is because since the 40s, we've been told just to drink 8 glasses of water every day, whether or not you're thirsty. And that's not necessarily the right thing to do. Drinking that much water can dilute your blood electrolyte levels, which leads to a lot of those problems we talked about earlier. So the solution isn't just to stop drinking water, it's to drink water plus electrolytes. Enter Element. Element has enough sodium, potassium, and magnesium to get you feeling and performing your best. Plus, there's zero sugar, no artificial colors, or no other weird ingredients that are going to hold you back. You're also guaranteed to find an Element flavor you love. I really love the new lemonade flavor. I think it's so good. I also really like raspberry. I like watermelon. Jesse loves orange. All the flavors are great, but I tend to kind of like the fruity, more citrusy ones. But yeah, try the new lemonade one. I think it's totally delicious. And Element came up with a fantastic offer just for us. You can get your free sample pack with any Element purchase at drinkelement.com/tooth. Be sure to try the new Element Sparkling, which is a bold 16-ounce can of sparkling electrolyte water. So again, that's drinklmnt.com/tooth. All right, you guys have any questions about the sloth bear of Mysore or sloth bears in general before we go to our categories?
I always think of Plato being just like out of the womb, bald with a big white beard. Like he was never a young man, right?
No.
Plato?
Yeah.
Maybe like a sloth bear in one of those like mirror houses at the fair. It would bonk its head
It would
so
be bonking.
much.
Dude. Especially like because they can stand up. They're going to be hitting their head all the time. Wes.
They'd probably be charging those mirrors a lot too, because
This didn't come up like a single time in that paper you wrote?
No, there was nothing about
Head
mirror
bonks.
houses or the Shire.
That's weird.
Or Plato.
I bet
in
you
any
there's-
of these things.
Do they have pretty thick skulls?
Yeah, I mean they're like other bears. They have a pretty robust skull. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
You should do a paper, Jeff. You should write a paper on sloth bears bonking their heads. All right. So if there's no real questions, we're going to move on to categories. Our favorite sloth bear is our first one. Favorite sloth bear from pop culture. There's not many. So, or just favorite sloth bear in general. It can be the one you saw in India. It can be whatever you want.
So we're pretty sure Winnie is a black bear, right? Is that what we decided?
Yeah. Winnie
Okay.
was based off of a black bear initially.
Oh, okay. So even though he's a honey bear, more or less.
Wes just left.
I know, now we're directionless here.
You know, I'll take one. I'll take one that I'll leave the obvious one and I'll take from the movie RRR. I just really like how they gather up all the jungle animals in India and then release them on like the English nobles. And I was glad they got a bear in there. So I'll go with the sloth bear they got in RRR.
I'd forgotten about that. That was great. That's a fun movie.
I really enjoyed that.
Movie.
The scene where they like save the boy,
On the
then there's
bridge?
just like a 15-minute
Swing back and forth.
monologue
Best
of
friends
like
montage.
best montage of like them becoming best friends is just amazing.
It's like 3.5 hours long too, and it's just good throughout the entire runtime. It
always
like never
fun.
slows down.
Yeah.
Mike, do you have a favorite sloth bear?
Paddington? Is he a sloth
No.
bear? Dude, what's a spectacle?
He's an Andean bear.
So I
the
can
only
really only think of
famous
one.
sloth bear is Baloo.
That's
Yeah.
the only one I could think of. So I guess
Okay.
that one.
I'm gonna pick this little one that I have this little metal statue of a sloth bear that I bought my first time I was in India, and I bought it from this guy who had a really kind of shady looking little shop, and it was below all this other stuff, and it had kind of a menacing feel to it. And this was like right before COVID started, and so I kind of blame me buying this sloth bear for starting COVID. I think that
Oh.
might have been what did it.
You're
So-
patient zero.
Yeah, I think it wasn't supposed to be bought, and that was my punishment for buying it.
I see.
So
Interesting.
sorry, guys. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so next we are going to do another poorly named animal. I asked you guys to come up with another example of an animal that just really isn't named very well.
Yeah. I have one I think I'm going to get some pushback on. Because it's a
we love
good
that.
name,
Yeah.
but I just don't think it works for the animal. Wallabies.
Okay.
I think
Hmm.
because like every time I hear wallabies, I think of a rodent. I don't think of like a mini kangaroo.
Yeah.
And like I think kangaroo is the perfect name for kangaroos. And I think wallabies needs to have like a name closer to kangaroo. Like
What about that name makes you
Kangarites.
think of like something small?
Kangaroonies.
it could
Like,
be
what
like
is
a
it about
big
wallaby?
rodent. I don't know. It just sounds like a rodent to me. Like something. It doesn't
Interesting.
sound like a mini kangaroo.
Okay.
I can't get it out of my brain.
Yeah.
So maybe it's
Okay.
just a personal thing. But
Yeah.
like to me, it needs to sound more like kangaroo.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
You guys don't feel that way at all.
No, wallaby doesn't make me think of something small, but I don't
No.
know.
Well,
why
I
it
didn't
does
say
for
small.
You didn't? I thought you said
He
it
said
makes you think of a
rodent.
rodent.
Rodents can
Right.
be big,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, like
Capybaras are big.
capybara is the biggest
Capybara is
rodent.
huge.
Yeah. Okay.
I think of licorice when I think of wallaby. That's like a weird association I've got in my brain.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm kind of on your side on this one, Jeff, I guess.
I think
in
I
a way.
really
just
like
don't
the way
think
it
of-
sounds.
I just
Wallaby.
don't think of wallabies when I hear wallaby. I think of like a
A
a
rodent.
pika type of animal.
Something small.
You think they're small?
I mean,
I think when you say
bigger
rodent,
than an ant.
if someone says rodent, you think of a small animal. You don't think of like a big animal. You think of something small.
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Good
Good job.
I mean, this
I
was
think they should
open-ended.
have roo
You got
in
us
their
thinking.
name.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Like a wallaroo.
Wallaroo. Ooh, I do like that. Wallaroo. Yeah. All right. Get on it, Australia. Mike, do you have an answer?
Yeah, I'm going to go with guinea pig. That's always been a curious one to me. I don't really understand. I'm sure there's some taxonomical reason why that makes sense, but it just doesn't to me. Because
Yeah.
in my mind, pigs are pigs and guinea pigs aren't
Yeah.
pigs. Does that make sense? I don't know. They're like little
Yeah.
fuzzy rodents. I don't know. It just doesn't strike me
Yeah.
as a pig at all.
They're not pigs. Yeah. So
There you
They
go.
don't
I
really
think that's a
look
good one.
very piggish either.
No.
I picked whale shark. And
Yeah, I had that as a
it's
backup.
because I feel like I've done a lot of trips to see whale sharks with friends, and my friends just cannot get it straight. And they'll
confusing.
constantly be like, those whales. And I'll be like, oh, they're sharks. And they're like, I know they're sharks. And it's like, well, then don't call them whales, you know? So it's kind of, I don't know. I know I can be a little bit of a stickler about that kind of thing, but I just wish they weren't called whale sharks because it is confusing for people.
I like
They're
the
not whales.
idea of like having something that describes them as big before shark just
Yeah.
whale is confusing.
Yeah. And I get
Giga
it.
shark,
Yeah.
Giga shark would be a good one. Yeah.
jumbo. There's got to
Yeah.
be a better one.
The name makes sense because they're gentle, they're massive, but it is confusing for a lot of people. And they're not whales, they're
You
sharks.
could do like spotted shark.
Yeah. Giant spotted shark. Sure.
Oh, there you go. I'm gonna start calling
Constellation
them that.
shark.
See if we can get
So it
that
looks
moving.
like stars to Jeff.
Yeah,
All right.
I like that.
What would you guys?
Constellations are big.
They're huge.
It's true.
Wait, my backup
Galaxy
is
shark.
King cobra is a confusing one to me because they're not cobras,
Yeah.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
and I've just always thought they're cobras because
They're
it's
not
the king of
true.
cobras.
They're not true cobras, but you can still call them a cobra.
What the
So
freaking
it's
heck?
fine. Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
call them cobras. Why?
Yeah, you can call them cobras. Like, because there's like two groups. There's true cobras, which are like Naja species, Naja, and then there's snakes like king cobras that aren't true cobras, but they still have the characteristics of what we know as a cobra. So it's not wrong to call it a cobra still.
So they're like on the fringe of a cobra.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't
Okay.
think anyone's losing sleep over people.
All right.
calling
Yeah,
them
then
cobras.
I'm fine with it.
Okay. What would you guys name a sloth bear if you were responsible for naming them?
Hair bear.
That's
Like that.
Came to
Yeah,
mind.
Rhymes
Hair
too.
bear.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought maned bear would be maybe an appropriate name.
Oh yeah.
Or
I like
shaggy
that
bear.
too. Shaggy
But-
bear's good.
I think the one I want them to be the one that we saw, it kind of waddled out into the middle of the little dirt road we were on, kind of like a sumo wrestler. So I thought a sumo bear would be a fun name.
Oh, I
for
like
them.
that.
I would probably name them ant bear or termite bear because I think that's it's what they eat. It's descriptive. I like the name honey bear for them, but I would probably name them ant bear.
Ant bear. I think they'd be like the smallest bear then.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You know,
What about Gandalf bear? Because they're always bonking their
They're
head.
bonking. All right. What's his name? Mithrandir? Can't remember all of a sudden his real name.
Mithrandir.
Yeah, Mithrandir. Okay, we're going to do what would Mike and Jeff do? Let's say your best friend's son is attacked by, or you pick any part of the story that you want and do a what would Mike and Jeff do?
I would immediately start drinking my pee after I rolled my ankle. That's for sure. That's
Yeah,
as much as I've got, though.
If I was, what was his name? Anderson?
Yeah, Kenneth Anderson.
I wouldn't have gone back after that first trip. I would have stayed out there till job's done, you know?
Job's
You're
not
not
done.
a quitter. Yeah,
Job's not done. Lots of lives at stake here. That bear's going to get someone else.
that's a good point.
You know, there's ripe
Yep.
figs to eat.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What's his face? Corbett lived in Rudraprayag for like 4 years while he's trying to kill that leopard.
This guy's
Yeah.
job is a hunter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good
You
point.
did a bad
Jeff.
job.
It's a good point.
It's
Did a
like,
bad
what do you
job.
need to go back for? Your
Yeah.
job is literally a hunter.
What's that
This
guy's
is your
name
job.
that died? Thima. Thima's blood is on his hands.
Yeah.
Rolling a grenade into that cave would have been a good idea.
All right.
Listen,
let's,
maybe the girl's in there, maybe, but it's for the greater good kind of thing,
All right. Let's do what you actually should do. A big part of this is prevention. So if you are in India and you're not, protected by a car or whatever, you're out in the brush, making a fair amount of noise as you're moving around is really important because this is an animal that you could surprise. And if you surprise them at close range, they'll probably attack. If you surprise them at a long distance, there's a good chance it's just going to run away. So making noise to avoid them, avoiding moving around in brush during like dawn and dusk when they're most active. But this is actually a really interesting bear because there's not a great consensus yet on the right messaging for what you should do. Thomas Sharp, my co-author on my sloth bear paper, wrote a paper with Tom Smith, my mentor, on sloth bear attacks. And there's some other authors in that paper as well. What they found is that it's kind of a tricky bear. Sometimes playing dead actually works.
That's a good name for it.
Tricky bear.
Tricky
Yeah.
bear.
Yeah.
Sometimes playing dead actually works pretty well with this bear because it just kind of wants the threat to be gone. And if you're suddenly not a threat anymore, but they did find that people that played dead often had more serious injuries than people that ran or people that fought back. But people that ran or fought back died at a higher average than people that played dead. So it's kind of tricky. You don't want to run. You don't want to fight back necessarily. But playing dead also, you might get pretty beat up when you do that. So the best advice I can give people is make plenty of noise. If you see a sloth bear and it hasn't seen or heard you yet, you want to quietly just leave that area so it doesn't even hear you or know that you're there. And if you're being charged by a sloth bear, I would try and slowly back away. But if it makes contact with you, play dead, go into the fetal position, protect your neck, protect your face, protect your stomach, and hope that it stops that attack. And hopefully someday India will have access to bear spray and these other tools that would be really good deterrents for sloth bears.
Yeah.
India. I thought we'd been talking about Indiana this whole time.
Okay. That's a really interesting paper, though. If you want to read it, it's with Tom Smith and Tom Sharp. And
You thought we were talking about like Gary, Indiana?
Yeah. Gary, Indiana, Gary, Indiana, Gary, Indiana.
All right. Next category.
That's like often cited as one of the most dangerous cities in the country. So it makes
Really?
sense why I would think that. Yeah.
Gary, Indiana?
Yep.
Why?
Look it up. Look up the stats. For the bear attacks, probably.
Huh. All right. Next category is I wanted you guys to give me a hot take on Baloo the bear, a beloved children's.
I think you're both more opinionated than me on this, so I'm going to let you guys cook.
I'm going to let Mike go first because I think he's the most upset about it.
I hate this bear. I've never liked him. The biggest offense in the whole movie, and I think this is like, it's pretty messed up how he kind of tries to hijack King Louie's song by the end. He comes in with a little like leaf dress and starts dancing and singing like it's his song. You already had your song, Baloo. Let King Louie cook for a bit. But no, he has to get out there and steal center stage. That always bothered me so much.
And King Louie's song is like the best song.
It's the best song in the whole movie. Yeah. But I think even in his song,
You don't think he was just vibing it's the cameraman's fault for going on Baloo?
no, he takes over, dude. He does like the Kool-Aid Man thing through like a rock wall. He bursts onto the scene. He's like, now it's my turn to sing. It's like, dude. He probably took over that song though, because his song sucks. The Bare Necessities, terrible song. I think he takes minimalism to kind of an extreme, and he's talking about how to pick the prickly pears and the pawpaw fruits. It's like, maybe get like a fork or a tool. You don't have to have like absolutely nothing. I hate, dude.
I didn't realize when I came up with this category that you had such strong feelings.
It bothers me, dude, because he's all about like taking it easy, but then he's like, just steal from the bees. They're working hard and like they can sustain our lazy lifestyle. It's like, well, the bees are trying to take care of themselves. Why don't you do like a modicum of work for yourself? Yeah, I think Baloo's I think he's a fraud, and I think I don't know. I think he was happy to see Mowgli leave by the end because he was like, now I have one less thing to worry about. The bare necessities
take care of myself
kind of thing.
again. Yeah, you're probably right. I don't have nearly as strong feelings, but I'm glad I picked this category.
Such an attention hog, dude.
This is my favorite Disney movie, Jungle Book, the original animated one.
More than Pirates of the Caribbean, huh?
Yeah. And Baloo was like pretty consistently one of my favorite characters. But it was actually when me and Jeff recently had our lions versus tigers discussion, it made me look at Shere Khan differently, where I was like, Shere Khan was just trying to get rid of Mowgli, who he saw as a threat to like the jungle. Like he was the only one really protecting the jungle. And Baloo was trying to like make him part of their whole world and everything. And I think that was pretty dumb. I think Baloo should have killed Mowgli immediately instead of trying to like float on a river with him. So...
No,
that's my gripe.
That was mine too. Baloo's kind of the actual villain because Mowgli burns down the whole jungle. And Baloo enables that, you know?
Yeah. And
Shere Khan's just trying to like get rid of the threat to their whole ecosystem.
Yeah. The second Mowgli sees a hot girl, he's just like, I'm out of here. I don't care about you guys at all. And he's just gone.
See, that one I don't blame Mowgli for.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to move on to our Anaconda scale. We're bringing that back for this episode.
That's true, dude. He sees a girl from like a mile away and he's like, well, I guess I'm forsaking all of my friends and family and the life I've known.
Friends that have risked your life to save me over and over and over again.
Man.
See ya. Anaconda scale. Kenneth
You want him
Anderson.
to have sex with a wolf?
I would prefer that. Yeah.
Are we good? Can we move on to anaconda scale?
I don't know.
All right.
You can try.
Blue.
Who do you guys think from the movie Anaconda? Who do you think Kenneth Anderson most is aligned with? Curious about this one because I think you could go a lot of directions here.
Yeah, I would say from the Jungle Book, he's most like Shere Khan, trying to get Shere Khan, try and get rid of a threat to his way of life.
All right, we're gonna do our cage match next. This is a new animal, so we're gonna plug it into our cage match. This is kind of like a mid-sized bear, so I think for its weight class, we're looking at like American black bears, leopards, mountain lions.
That's interesting.
Wolves.
For bears, where do you think it places?
I think it probably is beating American black bears, even though they're bigger on average.
So it's like the third best bear after grizzlies and polar bears in a cage match?
Yeah, if I had to have one on my team.
No, I think I'd
bear,
agree with that.
I'd pick it after those two bears, yeah. Unless you're picking the biggest of each species, then I would probably still go with an American black bear. But if you're doing average size, I think I'd pick a sloth bear just because they're little brawlers, you know? They know how to fight. They do sometimes have interactions with leopards where they've fought. They've killed leopards. Leopards have killed them. So I think that's a really good fight between those two species. But yeah, I think for our bears, I'd rank it third. And then I'd probably take it over a leopard and I'd take it over a wolf too.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'd put them. All right.
Jaguar?
I was about to ask Jaguar.
I think I would take the Jaguar.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you guys? Who are you putting your money on?
For Jaguar? Yeah, I think I'd go Jaguar.
Yeah.
I honestly think the one I'd be most interested in is like versus American black bear.
Me too.
Same.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to do a little bit about conservation. They're IUCN vulnerable. They're protected under Indian law. There's likely about 10,000 sloth bears left in the wild, but they're rapidly losing their habitat to a growing population in the Indian subcontinent. Some of their other threats involve poaching for traditional medicine, and then bears being killed in direct conflicts with farmers or other people. So kind of like this bear that was killed by Kenneth Anderson, you know? But sometimes people just shoot them if they're like in their field or whatever. So luckily, more and more people are seeing the value in conservation in this Indian subcontinent. So when you say Indian subcontinent, it's like Nepal, India, Bhutan, kind of all those countries. And sloth bears, like tigers, have strongholds now in different national parks that have been set aside by local governments. So they are doing better in those places.
Yeah. Shout out to, like, I know there's for sure problems, but shout out to India for at least like conserving some wildlife, setting aside some like national parks, and like, you know, we went there, we saw sloth bears. Like that's
for sure
something to give them credit for.
Yeah.
It's great.
And I think sometimes with ecotourism, you kind of like think, man, like this is kind of messed up that there's all these cars watching this tiger or whatever. But when you think about the alternative of that tiger being forced to live in a habitat that's rapidly being degraded by, you know, expansion and people building things and agricultural stuff, it's better that
like
people have realized the value of tourism. Yeah.
Sure.
If the ecotourism didn't exist, that land might not be the way it is.
All right, briefly, I want to talk a little bit about the wildlife organization I worked with when I was doing sloth bear work and their efforts to save dancing bears. So this organization is Wildlife SOS. They started their work with sloth bears in the 90s, and I'm going to just like preface this with a quick trigger warning. It's a hard story to hear, the way that some of these bears were treated, but I do think it's important to see how big of a difference just one organization can really make when it comes to animal welfare. So basically, there's this nomadic tribe of people in India called the Kalandar people. And about 400 years ago, they started this practice where they would kill a mother sloth bear, kidnap her babies, and when the cub was about 6 months or older, they would put a red hot poker through the muzzle of the bear, through its nose. That would create a hole in the muzzle, and they would run a rope or a chain through that hole, and they would essentially then have this bear on this chain in its nose. And it's so painful for the bear that the bear would immediately kind of follow whatever pressure they would put on that rope. So they could then take these bears. Initially, it was for like royalty. They would take them and they would make them dance. So they're pulling on this rope and the bear's dancing, but really it's kind of like reacting to this really painful stimulus. It's really terrible. After this left more royalty, they just started doing it in the street where they would have these dancing bears for tourists. People could come see a dancing bear. They'd give these people money. And this continued for a really long time, and it affected hundreds and hundreds of bears. And Wildlife SOS launched this program to rescue dancing bears and replace this lost income for these people with something else. So basically, they would go take a bear from one of these Kalandar tribes people, and they would replace it with like a little corner kiosk or some kind of shop that they could then still make money, but they wouldn't have to exploit these animals anymore. And it worked really well. And all these bears that were rescued were placed in sanctuaries. They're treated really well. I worked in one of those sanctuaries, and I honestly don't know if I've ever seen happier bears. They had this terrible life, and then they get to go live with a bunch of other bears. They're fed amazing food. They're just really, really happy animals. And it's
That's
really
great.
beautiful. Yeah. Over time, Wildlife SOS essentially took every single dancing bear off the street. I think it was over 600 animals that they rescued in total. And the practice is now essentially eliminated in India. There really aren't dancing bears anymore. It's a huge win for animal welfare, and for sloth bears, super inspirational to me. Sometime we might have Kartik on the show. Kartik is one of the founders of Wildlife SOS and helped start this whole project. And he's just really an interesting person.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'd just say it's easy to like see something like that on social media and like just give it like a like because you like bears and it's someone
Or
with a bear
elephants or whatever else. Yeah.
and
Tigers.
it's like good to know that that's a bad practice and not to like, I don't know. I feel like the more public opinion changes on those things too, it's helpful. Just like not being impressed by bears that have been trained to do things that's not natural.
For sure.
Unless
And
they're on
wildlife-
a motorcycle.
Yeah. Wildlife SOS.
I'm going to
No.
like that. I can't help myself.
Wildlife SOS has gone on now to they're rescuing elephants that have been tortured. They even rescue like cobras that, you know, like the snake charmer people often violently like alter cobras to be able to do that. And they're rescuing cobras. They're doing all these different things to rescue animals, wild animals that have been essentially tortured their whole lives. So they're a great organization. They do a lot of research too. I really have liked working with them.
Well, let's donate some money.
Let's donate some money. Yep.
And we'll match up to 2,000 if listeners donate money.
Okay. We'll set up a way to track that. That's a good
Sure.
idea though. Mike, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to just say that same thing, but now Jeff looks
Jeff
like the good guy.
Beat you too.
Now he looks like the magnanimous bear lover.
No,
Gotta
I like
be quicker
that.
than that.
I know. It's
We're
my
gonna-
bad. It's on me.
Maybe let's do it through our Instagram. I know Instagram has like a way to raise money for different causes. So I think we'll do it on there. And yeah, like Jeff said, if we raise $2,000, we'll match that donation. So we'll put a little bit more fanfare into it when we launch it, but we'll let you guys know when that's going to be.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's
What-
it. We're
I
going to
have
do our claws.
one other
yeah.
question.
Yeah.
What other countries besides India have sloth bears?
Bhutan,
Bhutan,
Nepal, and what was the other one I said?
Indiana.
Bhutan, Nepal, and Sri Lanka.
That's
Um,
right.
Did you say it in the episode?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's on me. My bad.
That's on you, dog. Yeah.
Shoot.
Let's do our claw ratings for this animal. It's a new animal. I'll go first because mine's not a surprise. 10 claw animal. It's a bear. It's a bear I've worked with. I think they're like one of the weirdly most cute bears, but then just like so fascinating and interesting. So yeah, for me, it's a 10 out of 10. 10 claw animal.
One claw. I hate blue. In actuality, seeing the bear was a real special experience in India. I'd give it 8 claws. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I haven't thought about it a whole lot since.
Do
but
you have
that
any
might go
bears
up a
that are
little bit.
higher than that? For your
I like polar
claws?
bears and pandas. I think are
Okay.
both 9 claw bears.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 9 just because I have 4 bears ahead of it. So I feel like it deserves a 10, but also I can't have 5 10 claw bear animals. So I'm giving it a 9, and it's number 62 overall.
What are your? Well, I guess you're doing a video for Backpacker where you're going to rank your bears.
I think this will come out after though. So
Okay.
well, yeah,
It might not. Give us a tease. Tease us, Jeff.
tease you.
Yeah, I guess you just did, kind of.
Let's say
Yeah, I'm teased.
Sun Bears are not in the top 4.
Okay.
Oh, I gotta
All right.
watch the rest of that now.
That'll be coming out on our Instagram as well as theirs, I believe. But yeah, thanks guys for listening. I'm glad we finally did sloth bears. We'll do them again. There's a lot of attacks out there. They're a really interesting species. Kind of been saving them for a while, so I'm glad we finally talked about them.
Yeah.
We will link my paper in our show notes, and then also some info about Backpackers Bear Month, so you guys can learn more about bears this month. It's gonna be fun.
Sweet.
I like that
All right.
idea.
Okay. We'll see you guys later. Love you.
We'll see it. Love it.
Bye.